Rhino, somebody said they didn't realize you were that old when you were talking about.
They don't know.
I remember 90s department stores and the craze that the mall was in that day and age.
That was kind of the pinnacle of the mall
the heyday
era,
of mall
right?
culture.
That's where you hung out.
No doubt about it. The 80s, too, somewhat with the Valley Girls, with all the malls in the San Fernando Valley there in the Los Angeles area. So we got Senator Josh Harkins in the Element Well studio. He represents, of course, the great county of Rankin, serves as the chairman, as I like to call the all-powerful Senate Finance Committee. That just means you stress out about where we go get the money from to keep this place going. Appreciate it. You coming on there, Senator. So,
glad to be here.
Yeah. So what a day here in the Element Well studio that we've had you and Speaker of the House, Jason White, on the same day.
In the same day.
Discussing the competing measures for tax reform in the state of Mississippi. So one of the things that the governor and others have pointed out is that there's no bill, right? That there's not, as he said, there's no words on paper yet. What do you got there?
For your listeners that are or your viewers that are lucky enough to be watching online right now, that's the bill. Okay. It will be filed hopefully later this evening and assigned to the committee. So we should have something on the World Wide Web for everybody to peruse and look at and opine and offer their commentary on.
Well, let's point out that the deadline for such measures is next week.
Next
right?
week.
Next week from today? Wednesday. Yeah. Okay, Wednesday. All right. So you're well within the deadline.
Absolutely.
So the next step would be
to take it up in committee and then take it up on the floor before Wednesday.
In the Senate.
Yeah, the revenue and appropriation bills don't have a similar committee deadline like the general bills do. General bills have a committee deadline they have to get out of the committee by and then off the floor by a deadline.
Okay.
Revenue and appropriations just have to be off the floor by the deadline day of next Wednesday.
Okay. So not sure if you've seen the governor's social media post this morning. We've been talking about it, but he kind of gets into some details of the House plan, the Senate plan, and seems to be more leaning towards the House plan. It's no secret. You know, his priority, his goal is to fully eliminate the income tax. The Senate bill stops short of that. Tell us about the major provisions.
Well, the major provisions of the bill are, like I've discussed before, we're going to address the grocery tax immediately, and our plan will address it in 2025. It won't wait a year to 2026.
July of this year?
July of this year.
Our fiscal year.
We will adjust the grocery tax down from 7 to 5%. And that will provide immediate relief for folks going to the grocery store. It also starts the implementation of the 3-cent gas tax starting this year.
Okay.
And so that will be phased in over 3 years, 3 cents a year over 3 years. This year, we already have dropped the income tax from 4.7 to 4.4 this year, and next year it drops to 4% from 4.4. So the first year of the income tax continuation of lowering the income tax will be the second year. It will drop. The calendar year of 27 will drop to 3.75%, and it will drop 25 basis points each year, all the way down to 2.99%.
Okay. And then what about the general sales tax? What happens there?
Nothing. We do not touch the general sales tax in this plan.
So the House plan increases it from 7 to 8.5%, and that's
on general sales tax.
General sales tax. Everything that's not groceries,
tax.
Right? That's right. That's a good point to make. There's because we've had some folks text in about that on the C Spire text line that it would not affect sales from those located out of state. Those goods
anything
that are shipped
online.
into the state, anything online. Most people are pretty familiar with that.
It would stay at 7%.
So say it's 7%.
Mm-hmm.
So okay.
So ours does not change the sales tax. Well, all the levers that we are working with are the income tax, lowering it from 4 to 2.99, the grocery tax, immediate 7 to 5% reduction, and a gas tax increase over 3 years of 3 cents a year. And that's going to provide the revenue for MDOT. And I gave you a National Highway Construction Cost Index. It shows you what the cost of construction, the average cost of construction in the United States. And you can tell what happened in COVID. It absolutely just spiked.
I got to tell you, I'm shocked looking at this chart. because I'm looking at it from 2019 to 2025. It's straight up.
Yeah.
Straight up.
And that's where, I mean, you're getting less for your money, and I think that's where Brad White has been kind of preaching from, is that we need some more funds to do the work that we're supposed to do, to maintain our roads, to maintain our infrastructure, and to continue with capacity. I mean, if you look at this cost index and realize that you're having to maintain your roads before, if you want to do capacity projects, you have to maintain the roads you have now. The feds will come in and look at this, and as I appreciate it from Brad White, his explanation of it is just the funds aren't going as far, and we're not able to implement a 3-year plan. They haven't been able to implement a 3-year plan. And so these projects are getting pushed out into further years, and so these revenues are needed. It's something that, unfortunately, we have to maintain our infrastructure. We have to maintain the roads that we have, and this will provide revenue for them to do that. And it goes straight to maintenance. This does not go to MDOT for salaries. This goes straight to maintenance, and it's directed by the feds. So it's not a political decision on what road to fix. The feds drive the maintenance of the roads in our state.
So, Senator, to those who say, well, the Senate plan stops short of full elimination of the income tax, and that's a problem, we should proceed with something similar to the House bill. What's your rationale for that?
So do 41 other states that have income tax.
Okay.
They take a bite of the apple and they digest it, and then they make another cut. I mean, no other state has done this.
Really?
No other state has just gone off.
Kansas really is the only one in the last. Well, I mean, because all
Yeah.
the states that don't have an income tax, that was done decades
They never
ago.
have one. Alaska, I think,
one.
was the only one that
Yeah.
got rid of it, and they had the oil.
They were able to do it because of the massive amount of oil and gas revenue.
But every state, I mean, they talk about, Arkansas went 3.9. Why'd they do that? To go under Mississippi. But they stopped. They didn't continue to eliminate it. Louisiana didn't continue to eliminate their tax. They went to a point certain, which is, I mean, it's how you'd conduct your business. It's how you would the finances in your home. I mean, you would make sure that you have the revenue in your coffers to make sure that you provide the core services that you're supposed to provide. And meanwhile, we have demonstrated time and time again that we have continued to cut taxes on top of cutting taxes, and now again on top of cutting taxes again for personal income tax. This will be the third personal income tax cut, major tax cut that we've done, and we've also cut sales tax on software as a service on businesses. We've also allowed 100% expensing for corporations to do that. So we've addressed business tax issues, we've addressed personal income tax issues, and we've done that, and yet we've also funded education, added $270 million to education, and it's not a level funding going forward. You're having to continue to increase funding to education year over year. I think the estimate this year is around $40 million, and that's going to be next year and the year after. So all these things we're continuing to, we have addressed, we've included it. We've added money for site selection, site grants to help make sites ready across our state. I mean, economic development, we've paid cash for economic incentives for, economic development projects that we've been awarded. I mean, look at all the economic success we've had in the state over the last couple of years. And, I think we've managed a lot of these different facets of the life that we have to live pretty well. So
are you concerned about possible just natural increases in our spending burden?
Well,
one of the programs that you and I have talked about this, that always concerns me, is Medicaid. I've talked about that extensively on the program. And I'm not talking about Medicaid expansion. I'm just talking about
as it is today.
Just what we have in Mississippi, which is just basic standard Medicaid. And it's not something we could say, hey, we're just not going to pay that, because then we don't get the federal money.
Yeah, you don't get
that comes down.
That's one of the biggest drivers, I think, of concern of any budget that we have. I think our Medicaid is one that's the most fluid. But you look at other agencies, look at corrections. Look how much money we've had to spend in corrections to get caught up to a level, and it's still, they've got deficits, appropriations they're asking for this year. They're asking for increased funding for, inmate medicals going through the roof. You talk about child protective services. You talk about mental health. You talk about all these agencies that we've had to increase funding to provide services to either get out of lawsuits or prevented to going into lawsuits with the federal government. I mean, we're working diligently across several different facets. But, I mean, look, there are a lot of other things out there that, I mean, you know, a lot of other things that need funding that we have to mutually agree upon to do that. But there are other agencies and requests out there that we turn down because we feel like it's not, appropriate or just hadn't been convinced that it's the best thing to do for our state.
Senator Josh Harkins, he chairs the Senate Finance Committee, is our guest in the Element Well studio. We're coming right back. Senator Josh Harkins, he, of course, chairs the Senate Finance Committee. He's the tax man.
Rhino never disappoints on the
No, he does not. All right, so the significant deltas between the House bill and the Senate bill, and first and foremost is that the House bill does, over a 10-year period, phase out the income tax, but the Senate bill stops short over, it's a 3-year period, right?
Well, it's a 4-year implementation of taking the tax from 4 to 2.9%. We still have cuts for 25 and 26, so the cuts won't start until 27, 28, 29, and 30.
Okay.
But it takes it down to 2.9, which I think is about the third lowest in the country.
Okay. So help me understand that then. And what happens in fiscal year 26, which begins July of this year?
Well, in the second part of fiscal year 26, which the second part of that fiscal year is January 1 through July 1st of 27. That's where you start to absorb half of your income tax lowering from 4 to 3.75.
Okay, because right now, under present law, we would go January 1, 26
to December on income tax
to 4%.
Yes.
We're headed to that. This year's 4.4. Next year will be 4.
Correct.
So this bill would change that?
It would start in, all right, so you'd go 4 to 4% in 2026.
Calendar year 26. Yep.
So in calendar year 27, you start the decline from 4 to 3.75.
Okay.
28 would go to 3.
Quarter point increments.
I
misspoke
25
earlier.
basis points.
Okay. I said 0.3 increments.
That's what the House plan does.
You're right. You're right. That's where I conflated. So my apologies. So 4 years, quarter point a year, except I guess the final year slightly more than a quarter to get us to 2.99.
2.99.
Yeah, gotcha. But so when Senator, when the public says, gosh, there's plenty of opportunities to cut spending, which would give us more leeway, more opportunity to cut taxes, what's your response to that?
Well, I think, the appropriations process, I mean, they go through meetings, they go through hearings, they interview executive agencies and state agencies that are not executive level agencies, and they go through their spending requests. They go through, I mean, trust me, if the public saw the amount of requests that are on the chopping room floor at the end of an appropriations hearing, there's a lot of requests that do not get fulfilled or funded. There's a lot of requests for infrastructure projects. There's a lot of requests for all sorts of things that don't ever get funded. But we have to prioritize what it is that we're trying to do. Like last year, we prioritized $270 million of new spending in K through 12 education. Education's a three-legged stool. There's also community colleges and IHL. And professors and assistant professors are running about 70% of their peers on average salary. So if you're talking about having colleges that are putting out product, you have to have good professors on staff, and then we're falling way behind our peers for that. So there's not been really an emphasis on that, but it's important. It's important that our schools, and especially in STEM areas, are graduating people with a degree from a university that means something. Yeah. When companies look at, engineers, I mean, it means something when you graduate with an engineering degree from a university here. And so we want to maintain that level. We want to improve it to retain not only our citizens, but, the faculty, the good faculty that are out there that are teaching. It's important. And so it's important for the future of our state. And I think it also goes hand in hand with economic development. When you look at these companies coming in, they partner with our universities. They partner with our community colleges to help train, to help in research and development. And so it's important that we also consider that. But that hasn't been considered, not as much as K-12 education. And they're all important. So you have those type of pressures on you from different groups. And some are absolutely worthy and deserve the attention they're getting. But at the end of the day, inflation also hits us just like it hits you in your home, just like it hits a business out there. And so we have to deal with the inflation of services that we have to use to do the day-to-day operations the state's required to do.
The state auditor, has spoken a lot, talked a lot out in the public about a third party that he engaged to review just the organizational models, the spending at the various agencies. I don't think DOT was included in that engagement, but all the general fund agencies for the most part were. They came out with a report, did the third party, Boston Consulting, not an audit firm, not a public accounting firm, but rather a consulting firm, that said, hey, there's opportunities to cut $335 million of annual spending. And they cited things like cell phones that aren't used and general liability insurance for buildings, where they noted that we're paying more than like in the state of Florida, for example. Is this something you guys, I know the lieutenant governor said he's not interested in looking at it all. What do you think about that? Is that something to act on?
It's something we should always be mindful of is ways that we can limit costs. But I mean, I had community college was in my office last week, and they showed me where their general liability insurance over the last 3 years had gone up 67%. I'm pretty sure they spread that out and check the pricing on it. They should. And I asked them, how often are y'all, taking a look at your prices? And it's something that they continuously do. But pricing, the cost of utilities has gone up dramatically in the last 3 years. So there are costs that really you can't avoid. You have to figure out how to, pay for it and just work around it. But that's the part that we actually get hit with. That's, it's not very optional. But there are some things that we can help cut. But to the most of what we spend money on, you look at a couple of agencies, whether it's Medicaid, corrections, child protective services, mental health, education, community colleges, IHL, and debt service. Those are the ones that are the big ticket items that a bulk of your, almost nearly 80% of your money. Department of Public Safety, throw that in there. There are probably things that each individual person will look at and say, well, I don't like the way they're spending money on this. They can save it. Well, somebody else may say, I'm fine with that, but I don't like what they're spending money on over here. Everybody has an opinion. Yeah, it's a whack-a-mole. So, but I think that's what the House and Senate appropriators do year in, year out, is they comb through these things. They try to find, places that they can save money, cut money, and flat out they tell the agencies, no, we're not going to do this. I mean, they say no a lot up there, although it doesn't get reported, but there are a lot of things that we don't do that would drive up the cost of government, and we try to keep that as tight as we possibly can. And if you look at our expenses over COVID, they in no way match the growth of revenue during COVID. We've tried to keep our budget lean over those years, but you look where the money was spent and where the money was going to. I think it's, some of those agencies we talked about that needed extra funding, that needed monies to correct some things and to make some improvement, to make some hires. Corrections comes to mind as one that's really gone through a transformation and has cost a good bit of money. But that's one of those things that the public generally expects to be there. People commit crimes and they have to be housed, they have to be dealt with, they have to be adjudicated. There are costs that go along with that, and I think that our corrections is one of those things that people expect there to be a place for dangerous people to be locked up and kept away from the general public.
What's your prediction on what's going to happen with these two bills, competing measures? You feel like there will be some interest in going to conference and trying to hammer something out?
Well, we'll take our bill up in committee here soon, in the next few days, and pass it hopefully out of committee and off the floor, and which I expect to happen, and then it'll be transferred down to the House. Their bill's been transferred to us, and I'll meet with my colleague on the other end of the building, and we'll start to talk and see where we can find common ground. But the good thing is that we're both moving in the direction of lowering the burden on taxpayers. How we get to a destination, we can certainly talk and discuss and have difference of opinions, and hopefully come to a resolution that is beneficial for the taxpayers.
And so, because this is a revenue bill, this requires 2/3, right?
It's 3/5.
3/5, pardon.
Yes.
3/5.
3/5.
Think we'll get there in the Senate? You
I
feel
think
like
we
your
will.
Senate bill?
Yeah.
Have you kind of polled the members there?
We've talked to everybody, and we've talked about our plan. Look, the one thing that I've done is I've tried to be mindful and intentional about the plan. I was meeting with MDOT today, discussing some of the particulars about the gas tax portion of the bill. We have met with Legislative Budget Office repeated numerous times to model, different varieties and different variations of this bill, and we've come up with a pro forma that looks where this is a manageable plan that doesn't that keeps spending lean, and but it still addresses the issues that are out there. It provides for funding for Medicaid, what Medicaid looks like they're going to be needing. It provides for education. It provides for the things that we have both chambers have made a priority, and we'll continue to do that, continue to work to do that.
We got about 30 seconds. Are you concerned that if we were to implement something that would slide out the income tax, that we may end up with a revenue shortfall and we wouldn't be able to meet our expenses?
Well, I mean, I think you can try to predict into the future for a few years, but I don't know if you can really go out too far and have any success on being right. I mean, who knows what's going to happen on the federal level? Federal spending may totally shift, which totally changes the dynamic of all this.
Especially with Medicaid. That's where it would affect us the most.
Well, Medicaid, health, public health. I mean,
education.
They're talking about a 20% reduction to CDC. Our Department of Health is funded through them.
Yeah, Dr. Eddie talked about that last week. Senator Josh Harkins has been our guest in the Element Wealth Studio. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Gerard, for having me.
We're coming right back. Final segment.